Right, good people, welcome back to part 2 of this epic tutorial. Where I left you before was we'd modelled our desk and we'd unwrapped it, which means we'd set a UVW map to it. Now we need to start putting some textures on that desk. So the way we do that is as follows. First and foremost, get your Edit UV window up, which I'm sure you probably all have up. Obviously we're on Unwrap UVW, press Open UVW Editor, Win. Now, here are my objects here. Happy days. I come all the way up here to Tools and I go down to Render UVW Template. Okay, this is going to render a texture file so that I can start texturing it. Okay, at the moment you'll have seam edges probably on, so what we're going to do is going to turn those off, and basically it'll just turn off the green lines around the edge of your objects. When you come to render it, you'll just have nice clean white lines. We can leave all this 1024 by 1024, that's fine, that's a nice big size, and all I do is I press Render UVW Template. And that will bring this window up here, this little render window, okay? And basically, alright, we're zoomed out so you can't really see, but when you zoom in, you know the detail is there. It's just because it's so big it doesn't show. So this is my texture. So I come up here and I go Save Image, and I choose somewhere sensible to save it. He says, famous last words. I'm just going to save mine on my documents. Save it somewhere of use, anyway, somewhere that you remember. Where it is. Let's just quickly save it there. Okay, so I'm going to call this desk UVW. Okay, you need to tell it what type it is, so I'm going to give it a JPEG. Make sure I save it as JPEG. You can save it as a PNG if you don't want to save the alpha channels, but that's fine. We're just going to save it as a JPEG, so we press save. Okay, that quality is fine by me. Happy days, so I can close that, close that, close that. He says close that. Whee, there we go. Right, now what I can do is I can choose Photoshop. Right, I open Photoshop, which obviously I had to preload before, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to choose, he says, my texture, which is Desk UVW. And you will see, ta-da, there is my texture on the screen. Right, I need to start adding some textures to this, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go on the internet and find a nice wooden texture. Now, I might find a tileable texture if I can, and what that means is, basically when you put it next to each other, there are going to be no seams, so it produces a nice clean edge, because when you put a picture next to a picture, normally you can see a line where one picture starts and the next joins, but if it's tileable, it means it has a seamless sort of tile, so the two lines aren't visible. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause the video here, and then we're going to find ourselves a texture. I suggest that you go on www.cgtextures.com. There are something like 15,000 free textures on there. You set yourself up an account and you get 15 meg download a day, and you're talking about 0.3 meg per picture. So there's no reason why you can't get one. Genius, they don't spam your email or anything like that. I suggest any of you considering modelling should do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here while I go and find a texture, and then I'll show you what my texture looks like, and you can go on from there. Okay. Right, so I have found my texture, as small as it may have come in as. That doesn't mean it's this small. I chose a large image. It's pretty much the size of my document, but I could scale this up if I wanted massively. At the moment I don't really like the colour of it, but I'm going to change it, so it's not a big deal. To be fair, we could change that now, but we can do that later. It's not an essential thing at this moment in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you the principles of how the UVW mapping works. So what I'm going to do, just to demonstrate, is I'm going to get the brush tool. Don't know why I'm changing colour, but just so it's obvious. And I'm just going to, go away. I'm just going to press on new layer, and I'm just simply going to write my name on the top of it. Giles. Okay, right. Written my name on the top of it. Why, you ask? Well, I don't know. So what I've done there is I've written my name. I'm going to save my image as. I'm going to save it as a JPEG, and I'm just going to call it testing. Okay, testing. Save it in there. We're going to go back into 3ds Max, so we'll do that now. Ping, and in 3ds Max, I'm going to bring up the material editor. Okay, the way I did that, if you've forgotten, is you press M on your keyboard. Okay, you have got your material editor information up here, but I pressed M on my keyboard. I've already got 2 textures I'm playing around with, but for now that's fine. I'm just going to delete those textures out actually, just so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Right, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose, right, diffuse, that's the main colour of my object. There's a little box here called none. I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to do when the window pops up is I'm going to choose bitmap. Okay, bitmap means I'm going to apply an image. And guess what image I'm going to add? I'm going to add my testing image. Okay. Now what you should see basically is I've told Photoshop exactly what shape I'm going to be texturing. Okay, so when I apply this image onto here, you should be able to see my name written on the top of it, probably upside down. So what I'm going to do is show shaded material in viewport. I'm going to go back up to parent actually, and then I'm going to show shaded material in viewport. I'm just going to drag and drop that onto there. And of course it didn't come on. Why would it? It's not like I was expecting it to or anything. Right, so you can see at the moment the lines, the seams, and it appears quite probably that I have actually written on the underside of it. So let's rotate. There you go, alright. So you can clearly see what has happened. It didn't happen exactly as I promised, but nevertheless it has happened. Okay, so what you can see now around the edge here, basically the green lines, that means that you've got a UVW map on it. So that's because in the modifier the UVW map is selected. Okay, so the UVW, that just shows that we've mapped it. Now what we need to do in Photoshop is tell it exactly what part we want everything to be. So I'm going to make this a nice wood grain sort of colour. And to do that we're going to apply the wood grain texture. So now you know what the effects are. You could pretty much tackle that yourself. If you wanted to just paint a wood texture, that's fine, but I'm just going to use a quick image just to quickly show you the results, okay? So let's go back into Photoshop. Bam, here I am back in Photoshop. So let's delete that layer with my name in it on the underside of the table, as we've now learned, of course, because that's got the drawer in it. Why did I think it would be on the top? So I've got my wood layer here. What I did to do that was I just went File, Place, and then selected the wood texture, and lo and behold, it placed it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is... Right, I'm just going to do this very quick, just to show you sort of effects we might get. Just scale that right up. Press Enter. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard, and I'm going to move that along. If I hold Shift as well, I'm moving it along. Now what I mean by seamless and tileable is that that looks like one complete long texture. It doesn't look like I put a picture next to a picture. Okay, it means it carries on. It's very nice and tileable. And don't worry. So basically, all these areas that aren't inside the white line, so all this black area here and here and here, we don't need to worry about that, because essentially what we've told 3ds Max by UVW mapping is none of this exists. We only care about what's inside these boxes. So all I'm going to do very quickly is I'm just going to quickly apply this texture, boom, 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 to all of these. What you would do is you'd be a little bit more intricate. Well, when I put the leg in there, you know, and I put a little bit in here. What I'm going to do is just quickly block pave sort of and put it all in. Just like so. And then show you the results, because I think that'll be just fine. Okay, let's just square that off a little bit. That's fine. Right, if I pause the video here, just put the textures down, you have a go at that. Catch you in a sec. Okay, so here is my finished abomination. But just to clarify, this isn't necessarily the correct way of doing it. I mean, I'm just showing the principles. I wouldn't normally be quite as lazy as this, but I want to quickly show you everything. We've got a short amount of time to get all this done. So all I've done is I've covered all the insides up there with the wood texture. It doesn't matter if some of it overhangs, that just gets cut off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go File like I did before, save it as. Remember we call it a JPEG, testing, but this time I'm just going to call it a table texture. Screw that, we'll go with desk texture. Apologies for that. Right, there you go, let's save. Okay. Right, now we need to take it back into 3ds Max and apply this new texture. So let's stop that there. And here we are back in 3ds Max. So let's change that texture out. So what I can do is right click where it says M, that's the material that I've applied. I can just cut that, and I have no texture applied. Click on None, double click on Bitmap, like we did before, and this time I would like Desk Texture. Okay, now if I look at that texture, You can see it's got the black bits but the lines, but the black bits will get cut out, we don't mind too much about that. So let's show that texture in the viewport. And there you have it. Right, so let's render that out, see what that looks like. Okay. Right, that's pretty fun. Let's just have a look very quick. I've got a mental ray on, so that's why my renderer looks like it did. Right, okay. The most straightforward table ever, but nevertheless it still does the job, okay? So when we put this in part of a scene, and put some nice lights on it and stuff like that, it'll start to look interesting. Now, I'm not teaching you photorealism today, that'll be another day and things like that, but this is the essential skill set that you're going to need to complete your project, okay? So we have a nice basic desk to start us off with. If you wanted to change the colour of this wood here, make that a little bit darker, and you could inset that again, move that in a little bit, and maybe that'll make a slightly more interesting shape for your desk. Add some more drawers or anything to it if you really want, but you're free to play around with it now. What we're going to do now is we're going to start adding some other objects to the set. First we'll probably texture this very quickly so that the door handle part of it has an interesting colour, so I'm just going to choose a sort of darkish grey. I'm going to make it glossy and shiny, and don't want that too much, so click on my object, click assign material to selection. Oh, it's because the name is the same as this one, so I'll call that handle, and I'll apply the texture. Okay, that's a bit better. So if I go and right click perspective, show safe frame, and that's what the render is actually seeing. And let's just render that again. Okay, not too bad. Right, excellent. So that'll do us very nicely. We've just UVW mapped the desk. What I want to do is I want to add some objects on it, like a computer and a phone. I'm going to add a wall behind it. We're going to add a carpet, and then we're going to make that phone ringing. So basically the idea is going to be an email will pop up on the screen. Does the player take the choice of either clicking on the email to read it, or clicking on the link which you have on your screen, or answering the telephone? Those will be the two options in my narrative of my game, okay? If you're not making a game, it's no problems at all. You can still use the same skill set as I'm teaching you, but for the purpose of this, for my tutorial, I'm just feeding back on what I will be doing. Okay, so in the next session, we're going to start looking at the carpet and the walls. And we'll texture those as well with some very charming wallpaper. So please come back in part 3. Thanks very much.